So this is a journey with me for Veterans Day. And if you're a veteran, Veterans Day means a lot more than most people think. At least it does to me. And so I'm going to talk to you about some lighthearted things, none of the heavy stuff. But one thing I want you to notice is going around the room, there are 5,200 and some patches, and no two are identical. Each one is literally different. And I've been collecting them for a long, long time, and I'm not anywhere near done. Just at the brigade level and above, I know I can get at least another 3,000. This particular collection dates all the way back to World War I. Actually, I have a couple pieces from the Spanish-American War. So the uniforms around here, most of these are what I'll call recreations of uniforms that I wore. This is actually what I started with. This was actually a combat uniform. If you're in combat, what is wrong with this picture? Anybody? Well, one, there's no protection, but two, there's bright and shiny stuff on here. And if there's bright and shiny stuff, guess what they can do? They can see you. And if they can see you, your day may not end up well. But that's actually the one I started with. That would be 50s and early 60s. Woodlands camouflage, this was my all-time favorite. They especially wore these in Vietnam. Jungle fatigues. My favorite pattern is this one. I don't have a uniform in it, and that's literally jungle camo. This is my dress blues. This would be the formal uniform. This is like wearing a suit, if you will, in the civilian world. This jacket is actually mine. I can still wear that. Then just some weird things over here. When we first went into the first Gulf War, this was our desert camouflage. We discovered something very unique about that camouflage. It looked exactly like the Iraqi camouflage. And so we changed our minds and we went to this one. This was the most brilliant idea that the United States Army ever came up with, except for one problem. It doesn't work. It's not green enough for the woods. It's not brown enough for the desert. And everybody I know hated this particular pattern. And this is what they currently use. They've been using this one for about 20 years. Now, something I'll touch on in a little bit. So, on this shoulder, that would be the unit you're currently serving with on your left side. If somebody has a unit on their right side, that's what's called a combat patch. In other words, that person was in combat with that particular unit. No, I thought I had some, oh yeah. This little thing right here, very particular to Iraq and Afghanistan, ISF, International Security Assistance Force, but that's an identifier. Then like this little guy right here is sort of interesting. This is an infrared American flag. And so the sites that our guys use, they could see that and pick it out. But the Iraqis, Afghanis didn't have any type of sites like that. So I may touch on some of that, may not. Anybody? How many holidays are there for the military? There are 3. Anybody ever heard of Armed Forces Day? Of course not. It is the forgotten holiday. It's the 3rd Saturday of May, and it is for the people currently in the military. Nobody ever celebrates that. But there is Memorial Day. Memorial Day is National Barbecue Day, right? What do we do on Memorial Day? We grill, right? Barbecue, steaks, hamburgers, hot dogs. That's not what the holiday's for. The holiday is specifically to honor people who died in service for our nation. So while all you guys are doing your barbecue, you find me at the Houston National Cemetery. I'll explain what I'm doing in a little bit. But I'm honoring my brothers and sisters that did not come home. But the main one we're talking about today is Veterans Day. Rowan, what do you have to do to be the recipient of honor on Christmas Day? Do you have to do anything to get your present? You just got to show up, right? Uh-huh. What about 4th of July? Do you have to do anything to be able to celebrate 4th of July? No, right? Veterans Day you have to earn. To be the honored person on Veterans Day, you have to have signed on the dotted line and told the government you're going to give them 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 years of your life. And then that might turn into 10, 15, 20. I even know people that serve 40 years. The Veterans Day honors those that served our country and lived. Now, one of my favorite things is on Memorial Day, somebody comes up to me and goes, "Happy Memorial Day. Thank you for your service." And I look at him and I'm very polite. It's like, "Thank you very much, but I'm not dead yet." I don't want to be honored on Memorial Day. That's for my brothers and sisters. Now, on Memorial Day, you will find me, as I said, at Houston National Cemetery, and I have a pocket full of change. It's almost all pennies, but I do bring some nickels, some dimes, and some quarters just in case. And in particular, I am looking for people that passed away between 1964 and 1972. Anybody want to give me what they think the importance of those years are? It's not when I served. Could be. It's the Vietnam War. Those are the years we were most heavily involved in Vietnam. And I look for grave sites where the person buried was about 20 years old. Could be as young as 18. That is somebody who went to Vietnam and came back in a box. And I want to make sure they are honored. Most of those graves, you can tell nobody ever goes and says anything, goes to see them. They are forgotten. If I leave a penny, all I'm doing is leaving my respects. I'll go up, I'll read the information on the tombstone. It'll have their name, their service, their rank, when they served. It'll have, have what campaigns they were in. Perhaps a medal will be engraved on it. And I will read that, and I will take it in, and I will try and imagine what this person went through. And I will salute them, and I will leave my penny. If I leave a nickel, that means I went to basic training with that person, or any type of training. If I leave a dime, it means I actually served with them. And if you ever see a quarter on one, that means you were there the day that person died. That's Memorial Day. What Veterans Day is all about honor. A veteran, whether active duty, retired, National Guard, or Reserve, is someone who at one point in their life wrote a blank check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. Now, most people that serve never get anywhere near combat. 90% of them never get near combat. Of the ones that do get near combat, 90% of the casualties are in the infantry. I have friends that the United States of America cashed in that check. They did not come home. Now, this particular slide. I love this. First of all, I saw the poem, and I'm just like, oh, this is the coolest poem in the world. And then I saw this guy, and I'll talk about him in a second. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. Every right you have in America was paid for by myself, by my friends, and by the soldiers that came before me. Your ability to have any freedom in this country was paid for in blood. When somebody does not stand for the national anthem, it boils my blood because they are disrespecting me. But I gave you the right to do that. And I keep my mouth shut. Now, the picture. So I saw this, and first thing I noticed was this little red and white thing right there. It's that little red and white thing right there. 1st Battalion, 82nd Artillery. That man served in the same unit I did. I noticed the cavalry hat, and I noticed this little thing right here, this little golden black guy down there. That little golden black guy is this one right here. It's called a Combat Service Identification Badge. So this guy served in the 1st Cavalry Division, which I served in, and because of that, I know he was in Iraq or Afghanistan. In this case, 1st Cav always went to Iraq. And I look in here. I see a Bronze Star, 3rd highest award for combat. I see a Meritorious Service Medal. I see ribbons that tell me that he was in Iraq. That man is a hero. Plain and simple. And if I ran into him on the street and we started talking, and he's like, yeah, I was in the Army. He's like, oh, who you with? Oh, 1st Cav, 1st Team. I was 1st Team. Who'd you serve with? 182 Artillery. And I'd be just like, that's my brother. I have never met that man in my life. And yes, I've looked up his name to see if I served with him. But I have never met that man. And just by the fact that he served in the same unit I did, that's my brother. I would go out and buy him a beer. Or 2, or 3. The camaraderie you get in the military, there is nothing like it in the civilian world. Absolutely nothing. And where's my remote? This is Mr. Rowles. Now, the picture's not Mr. Rowles. That's a picture from Vietnam. Young men, old beyond their years, damaged minds and ravaged bodies, witness to horrors, victim of daily struggle, stiffened with age and unseen scars. He does not complain. We taught him well. That's Mr. Rowles every day. Now, I have been asked, why did I do it? Why do I have memories that I do not wish on my worst enemy? And it's not for me to answer, but this is something that was said by a civilian. I didn't carry the weight, walk in the boots, or even see the things that they saw. I never had to. And that is exactly the point. Thank you. I did this so my friends didn't have to. I did this so that people I've never met didn't have to. So, being in the military is somewhat of a family tradition. That's my dad. And so this is shortly after he enlisted, and he is standing next to a World War I French 75 millimeter cannon. one of the coolest pictures of the bunch, and I got to remember to take my remote with me. This is my nephew. He outranks me. He's a major. He was an F-14 pilot for the Marine Corps. Somebody really disrespected him last period when they said Air Force. But no, he's a Marine Corps aviator, and he's flying at 30,000 feet.
I'll talk to Ms. Ginshaw.
Yes, for you. So anyway, he's flying at 30,000 feet. He's in his F-14, and he is upside down. He is flying inverted. Look carefully at his visor. What do you see? Can you see it? Right there? He's picking up the curvature of the Earth. By the way, that's an illegal picture. Guess what you're not allowed to take into the cockpit when you're a pilot? Your cell phone. So he's not even supposed to take that picture. Coolest thing in the world. This is a very young Mr. Rowles. Mr. Rowles is all of 20 years old right here. And Mr. Rowles is becoming a second lieutenant. This is when I became an officer. Yes, that's my mom and dad. Why I am this tall, I have no clue. And that's, did I skip one? Nope, okay. This is me at jump school when I learned how to be a paratrooper. And at jump school, you're not a name, you're a number. I was 211. What that stands for is second platoon, first stick squad. Number 1, I was the stick leader. So every time one of the guys in my squad got in trouble and had to do push-ups, guess what I had to do? I had to do his push-ups with him. Yep. Anybody watch old World War II movies? Have you ever seen when they parachute into France and Normandy? Plane they jumped out of is a C-47. I am standing in the door of a C-47. And so there's my little Special Forces patch. Same thing is there. This is when I became a first lieutenant. I was now no longer infantry, I was artillery. And my favorite picture while I was in the service. This is when I was promoted to captain. So there's a tradition in the Army when you're promoted as an officer. This is Colonel Wren, by the way. He's my battalion commander. He pins your rank on one side, and your wife or girlfriend pins them on the other. I did not have a wife or a girlfriend. So I asked Colonel Wren, it's like, sir, would Mrs. Wren do me the honor of pinning on my rank? And being very polite, he's like, I don't know, but I'll ask her. And she said yes. And so the ceremony comes. We're in a room about this size. There's about 40 or 50 officers and senior sergeants, senior NCOs in the room. And they read the orders, and Colonel Wren does his thing. Mrs. Wren does her thing, and I'm standing there, and I look at Mrs. Wren, and she gives me a look like, and there's another part of the tradition. We all forgot about this part. You now kiss your wife or girlfriend. And so I look at her and it dawns on me, and we both look over at her husband. Now, Colonel Wren always stood like this, and we both look over at him, and now it dawns on Colonel Wren that we all forgot about part of the tradition. And you can see him ponder it for a second, and he just goes, and this is not a little kiss. This is a kiss. And this is my boss. And that's his wife. And the officers of the battalion just absolutely lost it. Actually, if you look at him, you can even see he's laughing. And so one of the funniest things that came from that is I worked for him for another 18 months. And I rarely saw him because I was always in the field. But every time I saw Colonel Wren, he would look at me and go, and he always called me by my first name. He's like, Randy, how's that girlfriend of yours? And I just look at him and go, I don't know, sir. Haven't seen her in a while. Why don't you ask her when you get home? He even brought it up when I left the battalion 18 months later. And yes, she was cute. So, this part of the uniform, so I'm talking about this guy right here. So this is where my rank is. But as far as all this stuff right here, the U.S., United States Army, cross cannons, artillery. I already mentioned this is 1st Battalion, 82nd Artillery. This little blue guy right here, that's called a Presidential Unit Citation. If you're with the unit when they get it, you wear it for the rest of your life. If you're with a unit that's got one, you wear it while you're with the unit. Of course, the name, Combat Service Identification Badge for the Special Forces. So the 6 months I spent in that foreign country training terrorists, that's what I got that one for. This is probably the most awesome one in the world. So this right here, this is called Combat Infantry Badge. It goes with that patch on your right-hand shoulder, or with this right here. This is awarded to infantrymen and special forces soldiers that are in combat for 60 days. There's 5 medals in here, 2 ribbons, I'll talk about those. These 2 are skill badges. The first one, Special Forces, there's a school you go to. So anybody know what a Navy SEAL is? Anybody ever hear of Navy SEALs? Okay. Are they the best of the Navy? Don't know. Navy SEALs are absolutely the best of the Navy. The Special Forces is literally the best of the Army. They are the elite soldiers. And so they have about 9 missions. When I was in, the primary mission we did was training people to overthrow their governments. Training terrorists. We called them guerrillas. During Iraq and Afghanistan, their main mission was to hunt terrorists. And they did it in very small groups. Then the jump wings, successfully getting through jump school. I'll talk about that in a second. This little piece behind it is called a parachute oval. Technically on this uniform, I'm not supposed to be wearing it because 1st Cavalry did not jump out. But every unit that jumps out of airplanes as part of their job has one of these. And this guy here, so airborne units all wear berets, and this was mine when I was in the Special Forces. They're also called the Green Beret, hence the Green Beret. And this is the hat I wore when I was in the Special Forces. And I can still wear it to this day. But this hat is very, very old. Oh, by the way, as far as these pieces here, the flashes and the ovals, top 3 panels back there, all of them except for all the blue ones down in the lower right, those are all different units, and I don't even have 10% of them yet. There's a whole bunch of those I can still collect. So my medals, I have 5 medals. This one is the Good Conduct Medal. You can only get that one when you're enlisted. And you have to stay trouble-free for 3 years. High school equivalent, no ISS, no DAP for 3 years, you get that one. This is the Army Commendation Medal. That one I got for the year that I served in Greece. This is the Meritorious Service Medal. I got that one for solving a problem. It was an Army-wide problem. So at this point in time, I'm in the artillery and fire support, so we're the eyes for the big artillery guns. The artillery bullets that we were shooting, 155 millimeter howitzers. The bullet weighs 150 pounds and the gun can launch it 14 miles accurately. And I was the guy in front telling them where to point the gun. And they created this little box called a DMD because they could find you talking over the radio. And so they created this little box to send it digitally. And my guys got good at doing what the book said. Problem was, when the fire mission got down to the guns, it made no sense whatsoever. It did not work. And every year or 18 months, they do a thing called an RTEP, which they test every battalion to see if you're combat ready. And this year, they had started testing everybody using that digital machine. They'd been doing it for 6 months. And during those 6 months, not one artillery battalion had successfully fired one mission digitally. Everybody got a 0 on it. And my battalion commander, Colonel Wren, the guy whose wife I kissed, he was like, Randy, we are not going to fail. Figure it out. Tell me what you need. And so we worked it and worked it and worked it. We reverse engineered the whole thing until I could literally sit down, and this is before PCs. I had to get on a typewriter, and I created 6 3x5 cards. And I had to create 12 sets of those for each of the teams and 1 spare. And if you followed my card, the mission was correct. So the RTEP comes. We do the voice command part perfectly, and there's 20 officers evaluating us. And it's like, okay, fire the first mission. Sergeant Rogers, target identified, tell him what to shoot. Bullet comes out, boom, right where it's supposed to, on time, steal on target. And you can see these 20 officers going, what's going on? So there's 9 missions you have to do to qualify. And we executed all 9 of them perfectly. Now, mind you, not one artillery battalion for 6 months has completed 1. They think we're cheating. They give us another mission, and another one, and another one, and another one. Next thing you know, there were 10, 15, 20, 25, over 30 missions we fired, and every one was on time, on target. So next thing I know, I hear Colonel Wren, yes, the guy whose wife I kissed. Camera rolls, post. Yes, sir. Colonel so-and-so wants to know how you did it. Well, sir, we just giving the official answer. And he's like, no, he wants to know how you did it. They still think we're cheating. And Colonel Wren just nods at me like, Sergeant Rogers, bring cards. So I show the cards to this colonel. And he just flips through my set of cards. He's like, is that it? It's like, yes, sir. Every time. That, you know, to be on time, on target. It's like, can I have these? It's like, yes, sir. 6 months later, we had these things called field manuals that tell you how to do everything in the Army. So the one on fire support comes out, and there's an addendum that has 6 3x5 cards. Just slightly different from what I gave them. I ran into a guy 20 years later, fire support. Guess what they still used? My 6 cards. So that's what I got that one for. This is the Bronze Star. This is for Valor in Combat. That's the 3rd highest award for combat. And this was my going away present. Anybody ever watch a game show? You know what a consolation prize is? Thank you for playing. So they gave me that one on my last day saying, thank you for being here. So the jump wings. This is my original set of jump wings I got. So when you go through jump school, it's 4 weeks long. The first week is a pain in the butt. All they do the first week is harass you. Nothing you can do is right. Lots of push-ups, lots of running. They're just playing with your heads. Second week, all you do is fall down. It's called ground week. Literally all day long, you fall down. There's a specific way you have to fall down so you don't get hurt when you come down with the parachute. And then you go to tower week. Now you start jumping. Now you start falling down from higher. Eventually you get to jump week. Jump week starts with a 5-mile unit run. If you do not complete the 5 miles, you have to start all over again. And every part of your body hurts. You literally have bruises up one side and the other. Running is nearly impossible, but we all made it. Then you have to go out the airplane 5 times. If you lived, that is a successful jump. I know one guy who went out the airplane 5 times, and his chute only opened 4. And so his main didn't work. He pulled his reserve, but at this time he's going like this, and his reserve just wrapped around him. He actually landed on one person's canopy, rolled off of that onto another person's canopy, rolled off of that one, and literally that person was hitting the ground at that very moment. He didn't even get an extra bruise. He's the only guy I know that did it 5 times. Or jumped up 5 times and 4 times without a chute. So when you complete your 5th jump, they get you together on the drop zone. And that's when you're going to get your wings. And in our case, our Special Forces company had 11 guys going through. So our company commander, Major Chase, came in and to pin our wings on it. And so he would walk up and he would pin it on your blouse there, shake your hand, you'd salute him, he'd say congratulations. And then he'd ask you with a question mark, blood wings? This is something you're not supposed to do anymore. But he was old school. And of course, since it was the commander doing it, we all said yes. And now he takes the palm of his hand and just goes, BAM! And pins those 2 barbs into your chest. Going in is not the hard part. The hard part's when you take it back out. So that was one tradition. The other tradition with the jump wings is you now give these to a woman you love or a woman who will never do you wrong. If she ever does you wrong, you will die in a jump. That's what the tradition says. Now, at that point in time in my life, most of these go to a wife or girlfriend or a mom. I did not trust any of them. I'm serious. And so I literally still have my original pair of jump wings from when I finished jump school. So the patch on the right here is the most sentimental patch I have in the entire collection. So these 2 particular patches are these 2 right there. Do they look different? Yeah, the one's a little bit discolored. So the one on the left here, this is brand new. That one spent a year in Vietnam. My friend was in 1st Cavalry Division, 1968-69. And so one thing in case, gentlemen, you don't know, on your 18th birthday, you have to register for the Selective Service System. Ladies, they keep trying to get you into that, but haven't succeeded yet. The last time we actually had a draft was 1975, but you still have to register. If you graduated like he did in 1967, your senior trip was to Vietnam, unless you went to college. And so he graduated high school, he went through basic training, he went through advanced training, and then he ended up in Vietnam. And he was there for 365 days. Everybody was there for 365 days. On day 365, he is in the jungle. He is in a firefight. People are shooting at him, trying to kill him. He is shooting back at them, trying to kill them. They sent a Huey helicopter to get him. They pulled him out of the jungle, sent him to Saigon, processed him out of Vietnam. He hit LA, they processed him out of the Army, and in 72 hours after he was trying to kill people, he was wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt in Denver, Colorado. They do it very, very differently now. So he got home, he had cut this one off the shirt of his uniform on the way home to keep as a memento. He built this beautiful display, had it in his house. And after a while, every time he went by the display, he would have flashbacks. He had PTSD. He took it down, put it in his dresser drawer. Every time he went by that dresser drawer, he knew the patch was there. It would start to trigger his PTSD. So he came to me one day, this is about 1975, and he shows me the patch, which I'd already seen. I'd seen it at his house. He's like, would you like this? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, I'm going to give it to you under one condition. You cannot sell it. You cannot lose it. You cannot give it away. You have to keep this patch. And if I ever ask for it, you give it back. And I agreed to those terms. And I've had that patch for almost 50 years now. And no, he has never asked for it back. So, Some other patches. These are way back in that corner on the back wall in the lower right-hand corner. These are over 100 years old. These go all the way back to World War I. Anybody want to guess what MF stands for? No, it does not stand for that. It's military firefighter. But yes, these are over 100 years old. This one in particular is pretty cool. In World War I, they asked for engineers, they asked for set directors, they asked for artists, all kinds of people just to create camouflage. And that was their patch, the Camouflage Corps. This is my favorite patch in the whole, or one of them in the whole bunch. It's the most expensive one. This is for West Point, which is the premier military college for the Army. One of the cool things about this one is all the thread is metal. It's called a bullion patch. Every single bullion patch is made by hand. Each one is a unique work of art. I paid 60 bucks for that one. It's worth about 250. And I can tell looking at the outside edges, this was actually worn. It was probably worn by a cadet at West Point between the 1940s and 1950s. This is the predecessor unit to the Special Forces. This is the patch from World War II. And one of my favorite ones. This is Desert Air Force. Once again, bullion. So this is 1942-43, and it came with this one. This is an unofficial award. This was given to an airman who was shot down behind enemy lines and walked back. It happened a lot in the desert, but I thought that was really cool when I got those. I've seen that one go for over $300. So combat patches, just an interesting thing there. Do you notice the horses point different directions? Or the eagles? Reason for that is when you're with the unit, the face always goes forward. But if you put it on this side as a combat patch, the horse would be looking backwards. And so they actually, the ones that look the other way, the ones that be over here are unofficial patches. But a lot of people have bought them simply so as that they're always looking forward. Colonel Wren, the guy whose wife I kissed, he was the first one I saw ever wear one of those for the 1st Cav Division. And one of my favorite all-time patches. This is Maine National Guard, and the real patch does not have the Christmas lights. And so somebody from the Maine National Guard was in Afghanistan and wanted some Christmas spirit, so he had one handmade, and it's got the Velcro on it. And I'm sure his commander was like, really? And he's like, yep. It's like, you can keep it till New Year's, then you got to take it off. But patches like that, when I find those, are too cool. Then I also look for variations. So this is a military intelligence battalion in the desert, 4 different versions of it. This is an aviation brigade. This is what it's supposed to look like. The colors aren't quite right, but notice how the feathers on the arrow are wrong here, and then here the colors are just all wrong. Then you got like this one where they're just completely backwards. This is the right one, that's the wrong one. Then what's missing right there? It is really hard to find some of these. Then like here, these are ACU, which is this pattern here. This is 36 Infantry, which is Texas National Guard. These are supposed to be the same. Do you see something different? In the color, Then that one was actually handmade in Afghanistan. And then, Screaming Eagles, 101st Airborne Division, they do helicopter work. This is what you wear when you finish that school. This is the original one they created in 1965. This one was only used for about 18 months. And this one they have never authorized, but being a fire support person, I love that. I wish they would authorize that one day. Pointy things they won't let me bring in. This is what an infantryman looks like. That's literally what you looked like every day out in the field. That's the M109 howitzer. That's the gun that shoots that 150-pound bullet. So I was anywhere between 4 and 10 miles in front of that guy. And then the M1 tank. When I was with 1st Cav Division, even though I was artillery, I rode right there. Coolest machines in the world. They'll do 40, 50 mile an hour cross country, and it's like being on a highway. And the optics are incredible. It's green daylight. Unfortunately, where I was, I didn't get any optics. One of my sergeants bringing in a Huey helicopter. We actually parachuted out of the Huey. We're getting ready to jump, going out the helicopter. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. That's not me. I've already jumped. Now I want you to look carefully. What's behind the canopy? What do you see? Just one? 3. We're in about 20 mile an hour winds here. And he's literally being drug on the ground. And so these are 3 guys that are literally trying to collapse the parachute so he just doesn't get drug on into infinity. And there was cactus in that field. I thought I broke my back on that jump. That particular day, we put 11 people in the hospital, and 7 of them were put out of the service because of their injuries, just from the jump. So I bring this one up. This is Mr. Rowles coming up. I am wearing this very hat that very day. If you look at it carefully, you'll see it. Also, right here is a carabiner. So I'm attached to a rope on that. That rope I'm attached to is through this carabiner. And I still have it that many years later. So, any quick questions? Greatly appreciated, because we're about out of time, aren't we? Yep, got about a minute. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you got something out of this.